Wow. That cut out again rather quick.
You weren't expecting that, were you?
It's only
No.
15 seconds.
Only 15 seconds, yeah.
You'd think after episode 55 he would know, wouldn't you?
You'd think even after episode 57.
Oh, 67.
Yeah.
Geez, you think I would know?
You'd think you would know how many you've done.
That's
Hello,
because
everyone.
Crafty hasn't done quite as many as everyone else in the room.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Anyway,
Tom.
guys, I have great pleasure to introduce two guys that I've had even more pleasure working with in a past life at two different locations. So it was quite interesting to bump into them again in this world of distilling. So welcome, Alarna and Ben from Tara Distillery.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Welcome, guys.
Lovely to meet you.
So just before we get into shooting the shits, we usually just go around the room and ask everyone what they're drinking on the night. So same with our guests. What are you guys drinking?
I am actually having some of the John Jumbo single pot still. So it's malted barley, raw barley and oats, triple distilled and aged in some bourbon and Oloroso sherry cask. So just beautiful, nice, creamy on the palate, lots of dried fruits, and yeah, just really nice lingering taste afterwards. So yeah, love this one.
Where's that one? That's Irish.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're finishing it off there too, which is good to see.
Yes, I am.
I've got the blue bottle one.
Yes, they do a fabulous the gunpowder gin. About 2 years ago, they released their first single pot still whiskey. Interestingly, they're pushing really hard. A lot of distilleries in Ireland are doing both the single malt and the single pot still, but they're pushing quite hard on that sort of dedicated single pot still. Beautiful drop. Really nicely done, particularly because they have gone for that, launching at about 3 years old as well.
Yeah, right. Nice.
Very nice.
And what are you drinking, Ben?
I'm going for something a little bit different. I'm actually another Irish little drop, but I'm actually going for some of the Mickle Potchine here. Nice. Mickle's a distillery. It's a tiny little distillery out in Connemara in the west of Ireland, out west of Galway City. It's time I used to live over in Ireland. It's time I spent a lot of time out there playing music and things, and it's a nice part of the world. But this one, it's interesting because it's a nice classic Potchine, 44%, so it's not too high. But the flavours it with some bog bean, which is a distinctive botanical from that part of the world.
Bog bean.
Yeah. It does taste slightly better than it sounds, but yeah.
All right.
Get out of the bog.
Yeah. Okay. I'm guessing it is exactly what it says on the tin.
Yeah. It does have a whiff of the moors about it, but yeah.
A whiff of bog.
Yeah. It just sounds wrong to say it like that, but I get what you're saying.
How do you pronounce? Is it Potchine?
It's Potchine.
Potchine.
In Irish, "een" is like a diminutive. It's like to say it's like a little something. So it's essentially because it used to be made illicitly all over the place. That was often made on tiny little pot stills. So it's literally this little pot, like Potchine.
Right. And it's effectively moonshine. Irish
Look,
moonshine.
That's a very it's much more refined than moonshine.
Is that offensive?
I think you got to leave the room.
Spend a lot of time. So was it?
One strike.
Yeah. It's you spend a lot of time trying to explain to people what Potchine is, and then you eventually get to the point where you say it's an Irish style of moonshine, and everyone's like, "Yep, sweet, got it."
Well, the Irish took it to America.
Exactly right.
They make it from corn. We make it from grain.
Exactly right. All good.
Yep. Very good. Well, we are on at the moment. We're on the Cup Hill One cask.
Yeah, I've never tasted it.
Now you have.
It's
good.
Yeah.
Todd and I polished off that much.
Very nice.
Yeah. And then I've got
Generously given to us as a small sample.
a very small sample. Yep. In a beautiful, I've got to show it because it's so impressive. Hold on. It comes in this box.
Yes.
Yeah, nice
Oh.
box.
That,
Yeah.
so
And
you,
each box is handmade, apparently.
you
So-
get this. It's like fucking origami. Look at that.
That's fancy. That is fancy. I like it.
Yeah, a lot of design work gone into that.
Yeah.
You could kill someone with that.
Yeah. Just have the whiff of the guillotine about it, but that's.
I bet you for some time though, someone came along and tried to bang it down, thought it wouldn't sit.
Oh,
Like, well, I want to go down.
that's it.
Oh yeah.
It's a very nice. It's beautiful packaging, and they've done very, very well. And yeah, thank you for the samples, and do check out that was our
Last week, wasn't it?
was that last? No,
No,
not last
no,
week,
no.
week before. Episode
A couple of
67, I think. Yes.
That was Riverball.
Um,
Anyway, it doesn't matter.
So
and,
because it's absolutely stifling in my house at the moment, I've decided to have gin tonight. So I'm, if I can get it to work. So we got wild hibiscus, finger
Oh,
lime.
finger lime.
Very fancy.
Not very good. Little, oh, look at that. Little floaty bits in it, which are great.
here we go.
Quite refreshing.
Without
Yeah.
the glare and whatnot, there's also another beautiful label with the pewter and whatever on it,
Yeah.
with some floating balls.
That's it.
Gorgeous.
Lovely.
It's up there with bogberries, I'd imagine.
Bog beans. Bog
Oh.
beans.
Bog
Say
berries.
that. Berry makes it sound better than it is. Yeah.
Jingle bells.
Finger bells.
So, where did you guys meet? And how did you get into spirits?
We met a very long time ago in Galway in Ireland through a mutual friend of ours. I don't know, doing a bit of drinking and a bit of Irish dancing, and Ben was doing a bit more drinking and a bit of Irish music, and we just hit it off straight away. And you know, Ben sculled a pint of Guinness in front of me, so I was
To
like,
impress her.
you know,
It was straight up to impress her, and it worked. Yeah.
and yeah, that kind of got together back in Australia, and yeah, been married for a very long time.
Yeah, it's nearly years. Jeez, yeah. Anyway,
But
yes.
yeah, he decided I wanted to leave the corporate career, and I thought, what do I love doing? And I thought, I love drinking spirits, and I love dancing and music, and I thought, well, my river dance days are over, but maybe I can make some spirits that I enjoy. And yeah, I thought the Tasmanians are doing it, so why can't I? And just talked about it with Ben, and he was like, hell yeah, let's
look,
try.
Alarna was on a definite mission to find something, a career path out of the horrible corporate HR world that actually Todd encountered some with her as well, and she would constantly come up with ideas that were all genuinely terrible. So I'd got myself into a headspace that every time she suggested anything, I would just naturally go, that's not going to work. And then she suggested this, and it was one of those ideas where my natural reaction was to go, we can't. And then we thought, you know what? Actually, that's a bloody great idea. It was one of
I planned the grand plan of what the distillery looks like in 30 years' time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was set, and that kind of set us on a path of studying with the Institute of Brewing and Distilling, and we went to Ireland and Scotland and did some practical training and talked to as many distillers over there that would have a bit of a yarn with us. So, yeah, that's where it started.
It was when we first thought of doing like awesome, in 6 months we'll be up and running and it's going to be great, and then sort of 5 years later we actually so it was
kind of hit the fires down here on the south coast, which thank God we were pretty unaffected down here. We got to the end of the lane and we had 13 fire trucks just down the road, which stopped everything.
Yeah.
And then went into the floods and then COVID, and we opened during COVID. So
So
yeah.
All the big events.
So basically, you've been born from disaster.
And you'll survive.
Can survive all that. And
Right.
Price-
Wow.
yeah,
So I guess we could say that you're survivors and on a technical front inspired by the Irish. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, look, I think, as I said, a huge cultural background with Ireland. I had a great time in my 20s living over there playing Irish music. And in the Irish music scene, you kind of had a bit of a connection through a lot of the kind of, at that time, kind of very early Irish spirit scene. I think Ireland had a bit of a resurgence, or had a kind of a surge maybe sort of 5 years before we. Though, interestingly, not anywhere near the numbers that we ended up doing. I mean, it's a smaller country, but you could sort of see that real excitement about gin and whiskies all kind of raising up, particularly some of the Irish styles like single pot still whiskey and things. So I think that was really inspirational, but it was also seeing what was happening here. I mean, the actual defining moment where Alarna had the idea was actually over a bottle of Overeem that I picked up when I was doing gigs in Tassie. And that was the point of like, well, you know, people are doing whiskey of that quality here. Why not, you know, we should give it a shot ourselves.
Yeah, wow. I mean, look, as far as inspiration goes, that's up there. So now you've got you're in front of one still there, and you've got another one off to the side that you were showing us.
Yes, do you want me to do another?
Tell us about your setup.
I'll
Go
do
on,
it.
do us a tour.
There we go. So that's our 600 litre gin still. Moving over, and this is our 2,500 litre whiskey still. All made by Mark Burns out in Griffith. Absolute legend of a bloke. Particularly because we had some quite definite ideas of what we wanted out of our stills. And actually went through, and we knew we wanted to go Aussie makers. Like, it was really important to us. Like, all of our equipment we got made locally. It was really important to us to have that part of our story. But I will say that a lot of Aussie makers we dealt with, make great stills and things, but when we showed them the ideas that we had, they were like, that's great, but our stills look like this kind of thing. Whereas Mark was very excited to try it. He was
okay. Yeah. What is it that makes your still different?
I think like they're very tall still. On the gin still, we've got onion head in the middle. It's actually modelled off a couple of Irish stills on the west coast, Dingle Distillery, who makes some cracking whiskey and gin, and also Legally Distillery up Donegal. So they're nice and tall, made of copper, quite big condensers, run on rainwater. Really helps cool our spirit down. So we've got a 100,000 litre rain tank out the back. And the whiskey still, we went with the lantern head, which is more modelled off like an Isla type still.
Yeah. It's interesting because you still don't see too many lantern head stills in the Aussie scene.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So we've had a question from Nick Hope come in.
G'day, Nick. Oh, congrats, Nick. He just picked up a
Were you waiting
bronze.
for him to respond, or
No.
no? Okay.
I'm just having my own conversation.
Just a pause. I'm like, are you waiting for him to say that? No worries, mate.
Yeah, I'm just
Thank you, actually.
sorry. Carry on. I digress.
So has your whiskey been influenced by the smoke of the fires, do you think?
Not hugely. In fact, I think in a sense we were lucky in that all hit just before we commenced any kind of production. So in terms of artistically influenced, not hugely. We've kept a very sort of clean style. We're going for that kind of classic, again, particularly with our single pot still, that kind of classic triple distilled profile, letting the different grains give us that sort of interest, not necessarily going for any kind of peat. We love peat. We're massive peat whiskey fans, and it's something we've been wanting to do for a while, but we're kind of conscious that we want to do something that potentially look at local peats and things like that, something that kind of continues that story. We don't particularly for us, don't sort of connect with just buying in Scottish peated malt and distilling that off. I still feel like we have to have that kind of story. You know what I mean?
Yep. What about the floods? Has that influenced your barrels at all? Just like float them around a little bit, or
Rehydrated them.
Yeah. We definitely moved them, and they were up high. So
We had to clear the entire distillery out when the floods came through, and it was classic because the floods came and we were getting this trickle coming through the floor of the distillery, and Alarna was like, "We need to move everything, all the barrels and everything out right now," and I was like, "Do we though? It'll be fine." She was like, "No." So we did it, and literally like 5 minutes after we moved the last barrel, we were like, all this water just came.
Wow.
Oh, excellent. Yes.
So she was right and you were wrong.
Generally, yes.
often. Behind the scenes then.
Yeah, that's right.
We've also got another quick comment from John Helton. Love that you put an E in whiskey.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I mean,
apparently he makes something similar down south, but we'll, it's all about you for
that. We something we're on a lot because there is that kind of discussion about the fact that Australian whiskey is taken on that kind of Scottish form, but again, all of our big passionate influences have been those Irish style of whiskey. So for us, that's the tradition we're kind of paying tribute to. Definitely,
we're definitely following more the Irish route rather than the Scottish route. So we thought we'd add that in there.
Now, to me, the definition of an Irish whiskey, aside from obviously being distilled in Ireland, is triple distilled. But there are exceptions to that rule. Obviously,
very much.
One of our favourites, Waterford,
yes,
friends of the show. Are you always? Do you think you'll always head down that triple distilled route, or will you experiment with double distilling, or is it you play with it on a case by case basis?
Yeah, we make single malt as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we've always made both single pot still and single malt.
And for the single, we are double distilling.
And double distilling for the
because I think it's I think you're looking for different kind of characteristics, and particularly using the unmalted barley in the single pot still can give you a slightly spicy distillate. So I think the triple distilling there can kind of help that all meld together a bit more. Whereas with the single malts, I mean, all our favourite single malts are generally double distilled. So that was why that was the sort of line we went with that.
Would you say pots, and this is a question because I don't know, is it more challenging to make than a single malt whiskey?
I think so, definitely. Our equipment is quite still, let's say, manual. So your grains, particularly for the single pot still, we're using raw barley and we're using oats. So they're much more difficult to mill. We've got a certain amount of grist and flour and husk that we're looking for, and it takes us far longer to mill the oats and the raw barley.
The raw barley is punishing on the mill. It is, and it's been that's probably one of our biggest learning curves. And if we had our time again to maybe invest in it, because the mill we've got plows through malt, does malt great, loves it. Bang, 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 sweet, gets exactly the specs we want on the grist and everything. With raw barley, it's been a long journey, and I'd also say it's slightly the grain industry is much more aligned to getting really consistent specs on malt. We've had much more variability with our raw barley coming in terms of even just some of it has been really dry, some of it's been still quite moist. Trying to get the mill to actually mill that up has been pain in the bum, to be honest. So that's one of the challenges.
And also mashing in. Obviously we're getting a lot less sugars out and enzymes. So we're probably looking at lower percent ABV efficiency after our mashing.
Yeah, we're not using any enzymes with a single pot still.
Yeah, which a lot of pot still distillers do, but we're not.
Keeping it natural.
Yes,
Keeping it real
natural.
Yeah.
So definitely doing it the hard way.
And
more heritage style mash bills. 1800s. There's a researcher in Ireland working with Bowen Distillery, Nolan O'Connor, and looking a lot into what were the typical mash bills for single pot still for the last couple of 100 years, and the Irish technical file specifies how much other grains you can use, so how much other oat or wheat, rye, and at the moment it specifies only 5%, whereas traditionally more would be used. So that's, I think they'll be changing that probably soon, or at least within the next year. There's a lot of talk about changing. So yeah, we're trying some more traditional recipes.
Exciting.
Yeah, right. Another question from Nick has come in. With the lantern head, do you find you carry more oils, giving great depth in your whiskey?
Well, we definitely we do the body we get on our spirits is absolutely gorgeous. I do think you're getting some of the more of those oils, but it still doesn't get too punchy. Like, it actually gives you a nicely balanced distillate, which we're really happy about. It's something we're conscious of, particularly with the single malt, because we're only doing the double distillation. Is we wanted to have something that still had as I said, like a smoother delivery. We didn't want to have something that was too punchy in the back end. But I would say on both the stills, we're absolutely stoked about that texture. The texture we're getting off the distillate is great. It is quite a thick, chewier texture. It's something, it's good. And something we get comments on a lot, because we do a pochine. Here's a shameless plug. This one here. So this is sort of our essentially our whiskey spirit in a form that's designed to be drunk now. So we're even going from that and having people's reactions to that, you get a really good response from that, just to having a spirit in that.
What question I've got? So you're how can I put it? Making the product is one thing.
Yes.
Selling the product is another thing. But being able to use the product in cocktails and promote it and its versatility and that's another thing. That's a whole different ballgame. Did you have background in that, or is that something you've just learned as you've gone along?
Lots of
Experimentation.
I'd say not non-professional, but very motivated. Yeah. No, I'd say
acceptable to the old spirit.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say particularly, I suppose, talking more on the gin side, it's something we were very, very, very conscious of when we were designing up the gin, is to have something that has all these beautiful flavors, but at its fundamental level works as a mixing gin. It's like, we love it. We love how it expresses itself in that form, but if it doesn't come out through a cocktail having at least that kind of general sheen of gin, it's not really sort of fit for purpose in that way. That's also sort of our approach. That's why we really worked hard to have something that had that classic profile. It's also the gins we like. They're the gins we love. That's sort of classic London dry, big, fruit notes, like nice complexity, but it still doesn't lose that.
Calm your farm.
Hello.
Flavor.
Who's that?
Huh? My pet cat is annoying the hell out of me. Very, very, very demanding animal.
Just want to pat.
So,
Ah.
there you go.
Well, it doesn't help you're in a grain store.
If only she would catch a few of the mice. And sparrows and things.
So you're talking about more heritage grains and traditional Irish recipes and approaches. What about yeast? are you using regular distiller's yeast, or have you got your own special blend, or have you taken some sneaky swabs from some special places in Ireland? What's the?
I wish we had. That was good. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I guess we're using traditional distiller's yeast, but we also experiment with a few different yeasts that you can buy. We're not making our own at this point, but we're waiting a few years to see what effect that's having on the end spirit. So yeah, just a lot of trials and recipes at the moment.
Yeah, right.
So where do you find time to do that? In your free time?
What, do you sleep, Crafty?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. do any sleep? Yeah.
I mean, it's always, look, when you're distilling whiskey, it's always a tricky one where at the end of the day, you're a business that needs to create a commercial product, right? And you do have that, you have to we've sort of taken a deliberate but conservative approach to experimenting. Because we kind of like, we know where we've got a kind of a base level that we like, and we're just kind of branching out. Because at the end of the day, we need to still have a vaguely consistent product out there in the market. So we do get excited to try different things, but we're not kind of going, okay, this time we're going to try a whole bunch of ale yeast and this and this and this. It's generally like just adding to what we're doing or slightly varying what we're doing. Just
Lucas from Newcastle. What's this sleep business you talk about?
That's when you get to the end.
yeah.
One thing I want to comment. So when you guys burst onto the scene, and I remember, and I can see it on the screen, your gin bottle with that royal blue striking design. I know a lot of people that went, wow. So without even trying the gin, just looking at the bottle design, it just really grabs you. Where did that come from?
I think, like, our thought was not only the product quality spirit, it has to look like a quality spirit as well. Luckily, Ben knows how to use Illustrator.
Yeah, that's right.
But our pattern on the back, I don't know if you can see that, we actually got out of this very, very old Irish Yeats poetry that was there in the cover in black and white, and we thought that looks a bit botanical, like Aussie botanicals.
It's very nondescript. The pattern, have a look at the pattern. The beautiful thing with it is that, excuse me, we're right next to a Navy Air base. You say to someone, I've got sea lettuce in it, and they go, I love the seaweed pattern you've got on the back of the bottle. You say, oh, it's very juniper forward. They go, I love the juniper pattern on the back of the bottle. Not in a way that you put a lot of
Hang on a second, guys.
We're losing you again.
Hold on.
You're losing your passion just briefly.
Oh, no. Yeah.
The wind's blowing you around a bit.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. We'll try that now. I fiddle with the buttons. Yeah.
Say that again. What you just said, Ben?
I was just saying that, like, what we love about it is it's sort of botanical in a kind of nondescript way. So when we're doing tasting, we talk about the big juniper forward notes. People say they love the juniper pattern at the back of the bottle. When we're talking about how we use sea lettuce, they say, oh, I love the seaweed pattern you've got at the back of the bottle. It's a nice sweet spot where it hints at a lot of things without being too specific. But look, it was
nice.
Right? That was one thing we thought about on ourselves and kind of grabbed it. So looked comfortable. Have a lot of people who come to the South Coast, or even the people who live here on the South Coast, and when they travel, buy a gin and take their gin friends and go, this is made on the South Coast, this is who we are, and they're very proud of, their gin on the South Coast, which is, awesome.
In terms of process, a long process to get to there. Like, it was, because we were doing it ourselves, we had very early on, we engaged with some graphic designers and things, just even on logos and all that stuff, and spent a bit of money and just weren't happy with the results we were getting at all. And again, through my kind of music background, I've done sort of CD design artwork stuff for years. So I kind of had a very basic workman-like knowledge of how the design process works. So we thought it was one of those things. Let's just try and see how we go. And I'm glad you liked it. We were stoked with the end result we got. Had a kind of select group of people that we sort of lots of demographics we were trying to pull in, that we sent out various concepts to, and I think that was both helpful and not helpful, because some of them were good mates, some of their ideas were terrible, so that's terrible. But you know, it was as I said, we just knew that one of the biggest bits of feedback we got from distillers before we opened was making the stuff's easy, selling the stuff's really hard. So we knew that we had to have something that on some level stood out on a shelf. And I mean, the other thing we kind of made a deliberate conscious effort was with this, it's really hard with this camera, with this kind of shield element, is if you've got it, say if someone's got it on a shelf, even if it's slightly out of focus in the background, it's still very recognizable as a kind of a graphic element.
It definitely does stand out, and does have that very premium prestige feel about it. You look at it going, that's going to be expensive.
We're surprised it's affordable.
Surprisingly affordable, yes. So $78 I can see for a bottle of that at the 700ml bottle. What a bargain for that bottle.
Mm.
And you've carried that across all your gins, just a different a color base, yeah?
Yeah, so it's got that nice presentation when you do it. I mean, I was talking to some distillers, it looks good in a power wall. There's a term I didn't know when I designed it, but yes, you know, when you stack them all up next to each other, and it has good presence.
I thought a power wall was something you put on your wall with your solar, but
Yeah, exactly.
Right, okay, there you go. So how have you gone with distribution? Obviously being in the South Coast there, have you been able to get it out widely around the country, or has that been a bit of a challenge for you?
I think because we started just me and Silver, you know, trying to fit in production, sales, and your three other point hats that you wear. But definitely on the South Coast, like all the bars and restaurants and bottle shops have been really supportive from day dot, which we've been very fortunate about. With COVID, we didn't really get up to Sydney, so that's something we're only starting recently. So we hired a sales rep one day in Sydney, and yeah, we're going well so far. But yeah, we're just trialing different things. We've done and Dan Murphy's, BWS. Yeah, we kind of do a bit of a mix of your independents and your bigger chains. We're starting to go into Canberra, but the rest of it has been Ben and I literally bringing up and we have that and keep our spirit. So it's not, we both fight over doing the distillery work.
We're both production heads. We love this space.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily love that.
Yeah. So that's how
I hear you.
Yes.
So it's a battle as to who gets to run the still or not.
Exactly right.
Now we've got a schedule.
We're very scheduled. We occasionally.
So when I visited you guys a couple of years ago, there was a distinct space issue. In the sense that it appears that the shed looks roughly the same size. So where are you storing all your barrels?
Yeah.
Well, we were going to build a new warehouse, but I decided it might be a bit risky, so we've decided to lease a warehouse literally 5 minutes down the road from us. So we're storing all our barrels in there, which is awesome. It creates a bit of room in here.
Makes a massive difference.
So yeah, you don't have to move.
Would that be sort of like a big airplane hangar sort of space?
Yeah, and it's a nice concrete space. The temperature fluctuations are way less than here because it was quite punishing in here, and we didn't. We were conscious we wanted to get something that was a bit more moderate. So yeah, it's like a middle unit in a bunch of other warehouses, so it's got nice insulation on the sides, and it's changed our world massively. Like, we've moved all bottling out there. Okay, no, we haven't.
That's all right.
Is it more flood proof?
It is, yes.
Definitely.
Yes, it's on higher ground.
Fireproof.
And it's not the issue with our place here is that we are, even though we live in a suburb called Narrow Hill, but we're actually directly at the base of it. So when rain and flood things happen, this is where everything ends up. So that was the issue for us.
So Nick's attentively watching. He's got another question for you guys. So what is your preferred wood to barrel your product in?
Yeah. Excellent question. Look, again, taking just a nod to what we love. So again, I'd say we have a core that we're laying down into just good quality bourbon and Oloroso from Spain. Doing occasional little experiments here and there.
I think we want to get, as much whiskey down in bourbon and Oloroso before we do much other barrels.
We've had some good. We tried some new French oak, which was a complete shot in the dark, and it's actually turning out great. We've been really excited about that. It's nothing I would have actually almost ever thought about, but it was like a bit of a spur of the moment thing. But yeah, we're doing that, and I was to say the only other thing is we've kind of got a barrel aged gin that is something that is quite popular. We've actually leaned more heavily on the Aussie fortifieds for that, and got really good results out of those. Again, like 300 litre, like full size 300 litre casks for that, and really nice. Not too aggressive maturation. We're really consciously using full size barrels. We're not using any cut down barrels at all. For that reason, we want to give it time a bit.
Oh, we just lost you again for that bit. I'm having a fiddle with the buttons a little bit.
Have you back?
You coming? There you are.
Hello. All my most interesting parts get cut off. I'm telling you.
That's deliberate.
Yeah.
Something about showing the passion just kills the
and look, I've never really liked editing, but as soon as someone starts getting too excited, I just like to cut it off.
Yeah.
Like ixnay to the excitement, eh?
No, I reckon Alarna's got a button. And every time Ben's about to go, it's hit the button.
So your blooming gin uses rhubarb and blackberries.
Looks beautiful.
Well,
gorgeous color.
Thank you.
I would never have thought to put those two things together. Is that a thing?
A lot of experiments again. We've had a lot of your great experience.
Yeah, I guess we're just making gin cocktails with the rhubarb spirit and just love the flavour with our gin. And I do some local markets out at Narragansett. So I know a lot of the locals out that way, and they grow a lot of rhubarb and strawberry gum and things like that. So we started trialing some recipes with their farm fresh rhubarb, and we get our and blackberries from which is just down south of us, and yeah, their berries are just amazing. They're so sweet.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's kind of how it came about.
I mean,
I just have to flash it up on the screen there because it is the green label against the ruby red.
Just works
Yeah.
well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Really pops.
that was a controversial, not controversial. It was a much discussed concept. We went in because going into the pink gin market, when you look around, you see a lot of pink labels.
Yeah.
People that kind of space, and we were again trying to think of how can we get ourselves something that's going to kind of stand out if you're going to put it in a bunch of other pink gins. That colour's coming all naturally from the rhubarb, blackberries. It's a beautiful combination of colours you get. But yeah, the green works really nicely against it. We were stoked with that. But it was fun. We're with the blue with the gin. We're like, that's the blue. Let's go. Whereas this, we're like, maybe pink. But yeah, we're happy with how it turned out. Definitely.
It works really well.
So for those listening rather than watching, go to taradistillery.com. So TARA distillery.com. And you can see the Tara Blooming Gin there. Also at a really reasonable $85.
Yeah, exactly right. Look,
Pretty.
just honestly, with the pricing, it's something that we really wanted to get ourselves into a place in the market where people come. You know what I mean? Like if they'll like it, it's not going to be a one-off purchase where you go, that's beautiful, but I've just dropped $110 on it. That's something that's still in that kind of affordable, everyday kind of space. Australian context. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So with your whiskies that you've laid down, how far away are they from release, do you think?
I don't know, like some of it's past the official 2 mark.
We have whiskey. We actually have whiskey.
When we will release it, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess we're hoping for the next 6 months to a year. But yeah, I mean, we don't want to rush it. We want it to taste good.
Ready when it's ready.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think we're lucky in the sense that vodka and the liqueurs is business. We don't have we have to release. We don't have a economic imperative. So it is just and again, looking at that, I mean, obviously in the Australian context it's 2 years, but looking at the Irish and the Scottish with their 3-year sort of minimum, being conscious of that and sort of saying something that more aligned.
We've lost you again. Fucking technology.
Yeah.
Have you got me?
It's interesting that it always happens when you speak, Ben.
It does.
I'm not saying anything else. I'm just.
You're done. Just
It is only when you're talking. Yeah, there must be something in that. Maybe it's a pace thing.
It's the button.
Maybe it is a button. Yeah, she's got a little under the table. Silence. Mute.
We're just great speaking
Yes.
You're allowed to talk. You're allowed to. It's okay. It's okay. We'll let you. Alarna may not, but we will.
So talk about the distilling scene in your local area, because there's been quite a bit of activity of late, hasn't there? From the south coast, it's definitely establishing itself. Is there a community down there? Do you get together? Do you swap information, swap your pains? Is it like that?
Yeah, look, we were probably the craft distillery besides Manildra.
In the Shoalhaven.
In the Shoalhaven.
Yeah.
2 up in Wollongong.
3.
And probably in the last year we've had another 2 open in the Shoalhaven. So we get along with everyone. Yeah. We talk to everyone. everyone's so,
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Before we open, pretty much in terms of like South Coast, because Wollongong isn't the South Coast. I'm just going to say that right now. It's a very controversial
Whoa.
statement, but the Wollongong region isn't the South Coast of New South Wales. No, in terms of south of Wollongong, when we opened,
Yeah.
it was pretty much us and north of Eden who were operating. And that's excluding some Highlands. I mean, obviously you've got Dredger and you've got a lot of crew out there. But north of Eden crew, absolute legends. So, and we're like, so before we opened, we had really good communication with all the people who were already operating. Joadja, incredible help to us as well when we started out. And I think it's been nice with some of the ones opening up now. It's like, they've been in contact and we sort of talk a bit. And yeah, I think it is. That's my attitude in general with the distilling scene. It's incredibly collegiate. You know what I mean? I've found that throughout it, there's never been a real sense of kind of everyone being for the close shop and not wanting to do what they're doing. Everyone helps everyone out. Everyone seems to get on. But yeah, it's nice to see that as well. And look, I think it's only going to grow down here because this is a huge tourist area. Like we get a massive tourist trade down here. So I think there's we get people coming through here quite regularly who are thinking of doing it at some stage in the future. So I think that will grow. But
So do you have an actual cellar door there as well, or no? Is that something on the cards, or is that steer clear, or what are your thoughts on offering a cellar door experience?
well, we might have some exciting news coming up.
in the next couple of days, possibly.
A potential cellar door opportunity.
Not at the distillery.
Here. One day here, but yeah, it might be locally in Berry, which is far from us.
We don't want to say too much, though. Don't want to jinx it.
Haven't signed a contract yet, so perhaps I shouldn't say too much.
Anyway,
So people should jump on the socials and the mailing list to find out more
definitely
about something that may or may not happen in the future.
Exactly right. Look, it's something we're really conscious
of. Berry.
Yeah.
We have buy people here through quite often. People love being under the stills. We do a sort of tour and tasting thing occasionally here, and that goes really well. But when we set up, we were very conscious of it being, look, we had a certain pot of money, and we invested that money in production. You know what I mean? Like that was always our focus. We wanted to get ourselves. That's why we've got stills that'll do us well into the future. You know what I mean? So yeah. We're very anyway. Hopefully this happens because it will be very exciting. But
Stay tuned. Stay tuned for more, but not yet. Maybe soon. Jump on the socials.
But I will say that in terms of how we've operated as a distillery, I think we've been very, very good with local markets. We made a conscious effort to pretty much hit every single gin festival in Australia in our first sort of year and a half to kind of get the gin brand, in front of as many sort of interested people as possible. I think that made a big difference to kind of hit and get our kind of presence around. I think obviously having a cellar door and having that would be great, and I think there's market and everything good opportunity, but I think we've done quite well to exist and grow sales with it. It happened again.
The wind.
The wind's just gone mental here.
Yeah. But it probably is. The natural state of telecommunications in Australia is as soon as it rains or gets windy,
or you happen to live somewhere outside a major city.
Or you happen to live outside a major city or in Todd's house.
Regardless of how much.
Then you get shit.
I thought it was pretty good tonight.
I'm just waiting for the satellites to be blown out of the sky. So we'll see what happens there. So what's next for you guys, other than potential news in terms of cellar door or whatever? What are you focusing on for the next, let's say, couple of years?
I think just trying to get as much down as possible. Still keep up with vodka and liqueurs, and probably invest in some equipment like a better mill. And we quite manual equipment which is affecting us, so we need some investment there.
If you ask Santa really nicely, you might get one.
Sorry?
If you ask Santa really nicely, you might get a mill in your stocking.
Exactly. Look, it's one of those
I
things
keep
where I think if you're
asking Santa for a bigger shed.
one of those things where I occasionally get people asking, like, what's one of the things that you realize now that you didn't think when you were starting up, and investing in a good quality mill is right up there. As I said, it's not a bad mill. It's just it's designed for malt. It loves malt. Every time I do single malt, it's like everything's working as it should.
I think if you're doing corn or wheat or raw barley or oats, then you need a significant investment in mill, whereas if you're just doing malt.
Now you did just answer Todd's usual under the bus question.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably a perfect time to.
And now it's time for Throw the Todd under the bus.
Yes, well, these guys think it's a hilarious episode. Anyway,
You didn't see it coming.
didn't see it coming.
Don't blame me.
I've still got this special.
Oh,
He just kicked himself.
I think that's
It wasn't me. It was Nick. It was Nick's idea.
It was Nick's idea, was
The
it?
messenger. Don't shoot the messenger.
Yeah.
oh,
Going through some questions off the crowd.
Beryl
I've got
needs
no idea what this is, so please help me out by explaining what is your favourite Irish SPS?
look, I would say, I mean, in terms of historically important ones for us, Redbreast, particularly Redbreast or Stout, I absolutely think is
Single
still
pot
one
still.
of single pot still, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
That I think if you're interested in single pot still whiskey, you can't begrudge what a service. This sounds terrible. I'm saying it's terrible. What Middleton did to maintain that style of whiskey, because I mean, people probably know this, but essentially, as a style, it completely died in Ireland by the middle of the 20th century, except for when those three distillers combined to create Middleton, and the fact that they were the only distillery really still making single pot still. And making it of such a quality that it really has led to this whole resurgence in Ireland. And now, like, it's difficult to find a whiskey distillery that isn't doing some single pot still. I mean, Waterford's really interesting that they've deliberately not gone down that road, but most now, even if they, like say with Dingle, they'll do a single malt, but they'll still have a single pot still, really paying tribute to that. So I think you've got to pay tribute to Redbreast. I mean, it's still a fabulous drop. It's a beautiful, and particularly when you're looking at, it is just malted barley and malted barley. They haven't gone into any other grains or anything like that. It is just that blend. Really nicely combined. I mean, that's one of the major reasons why we're so dedicated to doing the bourbon Oloroso mix, because that's their main focus for their maturation as well. And you can see that really flowing through. I think the Drumshambo that Alarna was drinking before is a spectacular young single pot still.
I think Cologne, which is really quite a young craft distillery, and your man actually spent some time out here in Tassie with Peter Bignell.
Cologne's gorgeous.
He's
nice
actually doing some really interesting stuff there, and he's very transparent about what he's doing, and there's a lot of exciting things happening there, and there's the start of a pot still scene over here. You know, when started.
So what characterizes a single pot still spirit?
Excellent question. Do you want to say?
Either one.
Okay. Okay.
I'll be accused of pressing the button
I know.
if I talk.
Alarna would love to answer that for you. No, okay. So it is basically it is. I will go into the history of it. Do you want to go into the history of it? People are interested vaguely. I mean, it came from the fact of when England imposed its massive malt taxes on both the Scottish and the Irish scene, that there was a movement in both Scotland and Ireland to start essentially adjuncting malt with untaxed, unmalted barley, and kind of just letting the enzymes in the malt carry over, and you're not getting as much of a conversion as you would by using malt, but you still do get some conversion of the unmalted barley. So it essentially started as a complete tax write-off. That's all it was.
The best reason.
Exactly right. Look, skipping forward until like the end of the 1800s, where the tax got repealed and Scotland went straight went back to single malt. It's the whole thing of, at that time, how Ireland was really considered the premium whiskey in the world. It was considered far superior to the Scottish whiskey, and it was that mixture of malted and unmalted barley they were making on pot stills. That was the whiskey that was being seen as that. So Irish did the change to go back to single malt, and they kept that mix going because they were like, we're onto a good wicket here. Everyone thinks we're the best. Why would we go and change it? And it was just unfortunate. The 20th century hit, and tastes in spirits completely changed into that. With coffee stills coming in and lighter spirits becoming much more popular, that you had that real surge in lighter blended Scottish whiskies. That the heavier single pot still style really died out. But so in terms of what characterises it, it is in terms of, if you're talking about what technically it is now in Ireland, it has to be what is it? At least 30%.
We'll never
at
know.
least. Sorry, I missed it.
From my end, you just glitched. You just glitched right as you're about to tell us.
Okay. So in terms of the technical file in Ireland, it's at least 30% malted barley, at least 30% unmalted barley, and only up to 5% other grains. So that means, and traditionally they were rye or wheat. Now, there's been a massive push, as Alarna was saying, there's been a real historical mash bills, because historically they would use whatever grains were to hand. There were mash bills where they were using 20, 30% oats. There were mash bills where they were using a huge chunk of wheat in there as well. But because when they put their designation about what you could call single pot still, they made it that tight, where it was only 5%, there's been a real pushback about this kind of limiting innovation in that space. And there's been talk for ages about changing the technical file, and it feels like every single year everyone's like, this is the year where they're going to change the technical file, and they haven't so far. So,
it's about the mash bill, not the still itself.
Exactly. Okay. So the real distinction is, when you're talking, everyone knows single malt. You're talking about a single a spirit in Scotland, at least, generally made on a pot still from one distillery, all malt. Yeah. Because the Irish is exactly the same process. You're just using unmalted barley. You can't call it single malt. So to define it as something different to be made on a coffee still or a column still, they use the term single pot still. So it's exactly the same as single malt in terms of mashing and all that sort of thing. It's just that you can't call it single malt because it's not all malt.
And also it has to be copper pot still.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
And do you have the same limitations in Australia as you do if you're making it in Scotland and Ireland? Or do you have a lot more freedom here?
We don't have a definition.
For single pot still.
It's the Wild West in a sense. I mean, the classic thing is that we're talking to Peter Bignell, and a lot of what Peter Bignell's been making for years and years could have been called single pot still. A lot of his sort of mixed mash bill whiskies. So people have been making that kind of style here for ages. But we don't. For us, I guess it's more about having integrity in what you're doing. So we'll take the lead of the Irish, that Irish technical file. So it's, but I mean, in a sense, you could, there's no restrictions on that term in Australia. I mean, as we've seen, almost not that many distinctions on the term single malt in Australia either, but that's a different story.
Shall we dive into that or leave that for another day?
I think
I press the button.
I reckon
Yeah.
we should poke him with a pin or something. He looks like he's about to fall asleep over in the corner there.
he's just awed
Yeah.
with the. I think
Yeah.
yes.
Just making sure.
Oh, wait. I'm just listening.
Yeah.
No, listening.
So
I've got a question. So
okay, go.
the man on the street who drinks single malt, all I drink is single malt, and you put a pot still whiskey in front of him. How do you sell it to him?
I think there'd be an education piece in Australia that we need to go through. We've already started that with our poachine.
Yeah, poachine is.
So it's a way of describing how it's made differently, it's distilled differently, we use different grains, and then the taste is different as well. It's got that, we use oats, so it's got that nice creamy texture from the oats. The raw barley will add in that nice kind of spice note.
Yeah.
And the malt, you get that nice biscuity flavour. So, definitely tastes different. Our stills are quite tall, so, it's probably a delicate spirit as well. But definitely getting the whiskey or the poachine on lips, that definitely helps when we're explaining it.
I tell you what I think is least important is focusing on the triple distill part of it.
Yeah.
I think people get fixated on that as it's some kind of inherent element, but you can taste single pot still, triple distilled whiskies that are incredibly unctuous and heavy and oily and fat and punchy, and you can get ones that are incredibly delicate and light. I think it's as useful or not useful as saying Scottish whiskey's double distilled. It doesn't really tell them anything. I think the other thing I've always found as a kind of a way in for people who are more like single malt heads is talking about the texture. It's got a really distinctive, chewier texture to it. It's slightly grippier from the unmalted barley. And I think you give people that key where they can at least experientially notice that. Is that the right word? I just may have made that up. People can notice that in that initial mouthfeel. I think that kind of gives them a key in, and then you can kind of talk about how the grains have really influenced that kind of different approach. But a good single pot still has a lot in common with a good single malt. I think that it isn't like a kind of a single malt bourbon kind of thing where it's like you're talking different languages almost. I think that they're kind of almost, it's like a different accent on a similar kind of spirit.
Yeah, right. That's a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
According to John Helton, apparently you only have to try it to be converted, which
Thank you.
then he's slightly biased, I believe.
And we've also had Mark Springall chime in with raw barley. Is that why some of the old recipes don't seem to boil the wash?
Exactly
for
right.
the enzyme
Makes
conversion.
sense.
So we don't do any of the kind of boiling, none of that kind of style approach to the mash at all. It is pretty much bang on the single malt approach. It's just we've been playing a bit with the strike temperatures because we've been noticing that we are getting a bit more play with slightly elevated strike temperatures for it. Obviously, you don't want to denature the enzymes and all sorts of business, but we have noticed that we're getting a little bit better extraction. It's difficult though because we are trying a lot of different mash bills though. So we're also swinging from sort of 40 to 60% raw. So I've done that before where we've been 60% raw, then we'll do a 40% raw. And I'm like, man, I'm getting way better extraction on this. Like, yeah, because you're an idiot because you're not using as much raw.
So how do you combat that margin of error there, and document your processes? What's your documentation process?
What's that? Sorry, we just dropped out. Documentation process.
So what's your process for documenting your processes?
Oh.
How are you trying to maintain your consistency or remember what worked to get that yield or get that flavor profile, get that outcome?
Yeah.
And just to add to that, to make it a bit more complicated, factoring in you've got that variability with grains and milling. So that's a real challenge, isn't it?
It is massively, and I think part of it is just really tight documentation. I mean, documenting every element of the process from mill, like the gap in the mill for each thing, and how we're like, and recording, grist and flour percentages on the milling side, and being really consistent on that, and seeing the variation through, as I said, to strike temperatures, being very, very. We document everything really quite meticulously. I'd say we're better at that than we used to be. At the start, we were like throwing a lot of stuff and going, "Oh yeah, that's cool," but I think that's the whole thing, is that we had that classic situation of having 2 casks that we laid down early on, sampling them and going, "That's going freaking amazing. That's okay. What the fuck do we do with this one that we didn't do with this one?" So we're now like, let's make sure we can drill down a bit. So you learn those lessons.
And are you using? Have you got just a big spreadsheet, a Word doc that you're writing all this down, and how are you recording it all?
Ben loves a good Excel.
Look.
Everything has a title and a space, and we
Ben.
document every.
As Todd knows, we used to work together. My background is I used to be payroll manager. I used to be payroll manager for a few companies. I love Excel. I love spreadsheets that talk to other spreadsheets. I love putting one figure in that gives you 500 figures out the other end.
Of course.
And if you know anything about payroll, guys, they tend to be a little bit anal retentive at times when it comes to detail.
I'm more insulted in my life. No. I get a weird pleasure clicking the little Excel icon on my little laptop. It is
nothing weird about that.
I'll
tell you.
I was like, it'd be good if we could just get a little thing. We make limoncello, and I've obviously got all my spreadsheets doing that. And she was like, it's good if we could have just a little slip that prints out that documents just all the details in that one batch. So I was like, okay, leave it with me. Spend like 10 minutes on a little thing. So anyway, makes me happy. I think the old red dress in now. Good, excellent. Cheers. Yeah.
Nothing better than a good spreadsheet. Combine that with
Mrs. Crafty would be well on your side at the moment, I would say, if she's listening.
Yes.
Because how do we document things, Crafty?
Spreadsheets and handwritten.
Yeah.
They generally start off as, I haven't seen a spreadsheet yet, by the way. I've seen a lot of handwritten stuff.
Spreadsheets.
I'd be interested to see those as well, just to see
what
the definition of a spreadsheet is.
The problem with pieces of paper is they tend to get covered in sticky beer at times, and then we lose a lot.
That is, I will say, we actually, because again, I'm anal with the stuff, we actually have fully documented kind of log sheets that we use when we're actually doing it. So I take that, and that's the stuff we'll go and put in the spreadsheet later. So that I've discovered very hard stock is your friend.
Especially with all the bumps around.
Yeah, we get that wet.
Hoses.
You laugh, and it's very resistant. We had many times using classic normal paper where they'd become a pulpy mess. Whereas nice thick cardstock, it's a thing of beauty. This is not where I thought the conversation was going to go.
John's chimed in. I call mine notepad spreadsheets too, Crafty. It's funny because it's true.
Anyway. let's talk about. How's that time?
We've hit the hour mark.
Okay,
we're at now 10.
So barrel management,
Yes,
and barrel prep. So what's your process for that? You decide what barrels you want. Your barrels come in. You may not use them straight away, or you may. You all over your barrels, literally.
Let's float them out the back.
We try and use our barrels as soon as we get them.
Yeah.
Again, lessons learned of having barrels for too long. But beautiful colanders.
And we've been phoning.
Get to know a Cooper. I've kind of over time become an absolute pest to Don Carberry down in Murray River Cooperage. Often, it's funny, this week particularly, I've been on the phone to him a number of times, and he's an absolute legend.
Thank you.
I think, we've kind of adapted our process to now make sure we try and get a bank of new make ready, get the barrels in, fill them pretty much as soon as we can. So we're like, that's made a big difference. We're still always learning. Like I'd say that the shipment of bourbon barrels we got last week were the driest barrels we'd ever got from ever. They were very, very nearly to the point of unusability, and it was only through John.
Not from John.
No, it wasn't. I should say they weren't from John. That's what I mean. He's a lovely guy. It had nothing to do with him at all. But through him talking me down and sort of talking me through, we kind of got it to a point. A lot of it, I mean, in terms of what we're actually doing, it is. I mean, we're just doing the kind of classic tightening and steaming, and really like extended steaming to really kind of heat it up, saturate it. Except we just recently got some wet Oloroso barrels, so we're not doing any steaming with that. We just dump what's in that and refill,
Right.
as long as it smells all right, which they have. Give it a really light tighten and then just refill them after that. But it's weeks like last week where I had 4 barrels and thought we're not going to be able to use any of them. That having a good mate as a cooper helps, because barrels, as we all know, cost an absolute truck ton, and for us anyway, we had all of our containers full of new make. We had to essentially shut down production because those barrels had come in late as well. So we were waiting about 4 weeks for the barrels to come in. So we hadn't made anything for ages because we just didn't have any room to store any new make. So the fact that they came in and I had that couple of days thinking we're not going to actually be able to fill any barrels, it was a low time.
Yeah, that would have been stressful.
Did you through that stress and eventually success in getting the barrels filled?
Yeah.
What were your plan Bs that were going through your mind?
Genuinely loading up the van, driving down to Corowa and getting John to look at them. Genuinely, it's about 5 from here. I was having that conversation with him of like, oh, we'll see you in a couple of days. But then he was doing like, just try this, don't stress, rest it, don't freak out, tighten them up again. And we got there. Yeah.
Well done. I bet that was satisfying once you filled them. You're like, oh, thank fuck for that.
Yeah.
Well, after you spend an hour circling them to make sure they're not leaking anywhere and stressing about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the production entirely, like we have like 15 tanks. We're all full, and we literally couldn't distill
anything because we'd even ended up using some gin storage tanks to put new make in. It's like gin production stopped as well because we were.
Nothing. Unless
that.
Yeah.
Great. Because we'd done the other thing before where we'd like order barrels and then not fill them for 3 months, and then they'd been a disaster when we tried to fill them at that point. So we thought we were being clever by going, okay, we'll just order them when we've got the new make. But there's got to be a sweet spot somewhere in between there. But I do, in a funny way, I feel more confident that if we got some slightly, or let barrels get to a slightly dry point, I think I can probably get back more now through that.
Learning experience.
Yes.
Learning experience. That's invaluable. You can't buy that. All right. Well, we're about to hit the hour 15 mark.
Yep.
We generally like to try and keep it tight to an hour. It's been absolutely lovely chatting with you. There's a bit of love there, John Helton. Can't wait to try your whiskey. Happily in there, just for good measure. Definitely jump onto the website, which is here, Tara, Tara, distillery.com. Jump on the mailing list and the socials, I'm sure, from there. Actually, awesome. I didn't even notice the mailing list, but definitely jump on the socials and stay tuned for the upcoming notifications.
Yeah, and if you happen to be in the South Coast this weekend, you can meet these guys at the South Coast Food and Wine Festival. So get yourself along there and say hi to them in person.
That would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
While I think of it, there's a book that's not really Irish related, but story of Jim McEwen. You can buy that from our website.
You can indeed. Yep.
Which is
The Master
On
Distiller.
an island that's close to Ireland.
You can see it almost. Well, I think you can.
Jason,
On
yeah.
a clear day, you can, I think. Yeah.
On a clear day, I believe so. Yeah.
So you can go to shootingtheshit.com.au and pick up your copy of that. We'll even sign it for you if you like.
Because Jim
Oh,
won't.
No, but we will. That makes it extra special.
Extra special.
Extra special. We are sort of slowing down towards the end of the year, but we do have our next shit session will be next week.
If I find someone, at the moment it's blank, but the fortnight after that, hopefully will be Byron Distillery.
Right.
Okay,
So that's
Byron.
heading into towards the end of October there. So we may be back next week. We may not. We'll see how we go.
TBA.
Yeah.
Stay
Actually,
tuned.
the 26th of October will be Ballerine Distillery down in Victoria.
Yes.
On the Ballerine Peninsula. Yeah.
That kind of makes sense.
So says Florio.
Who'd have thought? Thank you all for joining us. Like and subscribe, all those things, and we will see you when we see you. Thank you, Ben and Alarna.
Fair play to you.
Greatly
Thank you.
appreciated.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
And
Thank you.
look forward to getting some poutine.
Whoa.
Murdered that. Absolutely fucking murdered that.
That's all right. I think it means that Canadian chip dish, but still, it's delicious.
That's where it is. Chips and gravy had me.
No, chips and mayo or something.
Now I'm hungry. Damn it. All right. I'm gonna roll the credits. Thank you all. Bye.
Yeah.